Every great city has its echoes of the past, its echoes of the future. What I'd like to talk to you today about is the echoes of Bath that you may not have heard of, that may not yet have reached your ears. But I'm curious, when I say the city of Bath, what do you think of? I think for most of us, it starts with this: the incredibly beautiful Royal Crescent and its Georgian Palladian architecture. Or perhaps this, the Circus, an amazing piece of work from John Wood the Elder and the incredibly creatively named John Wood the Younger, creating a beautiful, beautiful piece of our city. And this is what Bath is known for. This is what is in our UNESCO World Heritage story. But it is one of the stories that creates our city of Bath. You may also think about this, the landscape of Bath. Bath sits within beautiful valleys. It sits in a gorgeous piece of the world. It also sits on top of, I hope, a dormant volcano, thus giving us our beautiful hot springs. And this, too, is part of the story of Bath. This is what is part of our UNESCO inscription. This says that our beautiful city is not just our heritage, it's not just our architecture, it includes the landscape that we live within. Or your mind may go to, naturally, the Roman baths. That, after all, is what our city is named for. And who couldn't be impressed with the enterprise and the engineering and the empire building of this, particularly given that it's at the far fringes of the Roman Empire, in the province of Britannia, in the town at the time of Aquisulis. But it's absolutely beautiful and part of our story. But my favorite part of the story probably comes from here, Bath Abbey. Bath Abbey is important for me because it tells a more true story, I believe, of Bath. It is absolutely impressive and beautiful naturally, but it sits atop a first-century Roman ruin, an 8th century, or probably an 8th century Saxon church, an 11th century Norman cathedral, and then rebuilt on top of that. It has at various times been a local church. It's been an abbey. It got to the great heights of cathedral, and then it went back to being an abbey. In fact, in 1540, they tore the roof off, they took out all the glass, they took out all the iron, and they left it as a ruin for 70 years. But every time, it has been rebuilt with a new story and a new exciting piece that adds to our story of Bath. Or you may look at this and think, this is the story of Bath. This is what I love about Bath, is that even today, we are reinventing Bath. We're digging under this great abbey, and we're doing something about creating new spaces and new life and new stories within this city that will echo into the future. We are also putting in something the Romans would be very proud of, actually. We're putting in underfloor heating, so in those great Christmas services, we'll have warm feet. But it is driven by the hot springs of the city, so that we are creating an eco-friendly solution within this beautiful space. And this takes us forward into our story, and it helps to sort of create a situation which we build a different kind of a story upon our historical foundations. But what if I talk about industry, heavy industry in Bath? I know, right? Heavy industry, Bath, doesn't fit. But the truth is, right along the river, the largest employer in Bath used to be these guys, Stothart and Pitt, 2,000 people building cranes, building heavy equipment, sending it out to the world, helping build empire. And to this day, many of these cranes are preserved around the world. They are preserved in London, and they're preserved in Bristol. Millions and millions of tons of the world's goods were moved by these devices, built right here on the river in Bath. And yet, Bath seems to have forgotten a bit of its industrial history, and I think we should be proud of it. It's important. You may not have had a chance to play with a big crane on a harbor and unload goods, but I bet you played with this. In 1897, William Harbut invented Plasticine here in Bath to help with his, he was an art teacher, and he thought it would be a better way for his students to learn. And his factory was right here in Bath, shipping this stuff to the world. every time millions of people play with this around the world, mostly young people, but a few of us grown-ups too, they have a little bit of Bath's history moving through their hands. And I would argue, and I'm sure people will argue with me, but this might just be as important to Bath's story as Jane Austen, the millions of people that have used this. Or this. This is one of my favorites. Caroline and William Herschel. They came from Germany, and they were musicians and astronomers. And they, from their garden in Bath, in 1781 or thereabouts, from a homemade telescope, discovered 2,500 nebula. They discovered 10 comets. They discovered the very idea of a binary star system, which is incredibly modern. And they discovered the planet Uranus. I mean, it's amazing what happens in a back garden in Bath. And this guy, Roger Bannister, I don't know if this is a story you know, but he ran up the hills of Bath on his way to school, which my son, I think, would tell me that's reason enough for being late to school. But many years before he did that incredible 4-minute mile, he was essentially training on our beautiful hills. And this, at the same school, you may or may not know, but the same school, they built the science building at the school, was part funded by Richard Roberts' Nobel Prize money from 1993, where he won the Nobel Prize in medicine for his work on gene splicing, which is incredibly current. And that is a Bath story that reaches the whole world. It's a truly phenomenal story. And I am sharing a few snippets of our history, and I wish I had more time to fit it all in, but I'm inviting you to go and look and see what you can find of our history. You'll find there's 4 royal designers for industry. There's multiple Olympic medalists, and including 2 gold medalists. You'll find a Sterling Prize winner in architecture. You'll find all sorts of things. And it's important to go and look and understand these stories and see what there is out there. My personal favorites are the World Lego Robotic Champions, again, from this fair city. But that's a history. That's where we've come from. For most Bathonians, that isn't the future story. The question is, really, what does Bath mean to us? What does the future look like for us? And what echoes are we creating? And I would argue that this is more like what we are as Bath than the Roman ruins. That we are open to the world, we are creative, exciting, and dynamic, and that we're a little more like this really cool rooftop swimming pool than we are Roman. We're creating and moving forward in the world. We're building on education. We're building kind of a whole new world here that people don't know about. You may or may not know that Bath and Bristol, its sister city, are the center of the number 2 technology cluster in the country. And that the economic activity generated by technology, media, and creative industries is bigger than tourism and retail combined in this city. It's a very big thing. And part of that is this story, where the University of Bath, with 4 other research universities, is part of the Set Squared group. And they, in their work, has helped to accelerate companies, and they've helped to raise something close to £2 billion, created 20,000 jobs, and worked with thousands and thousands of companies. And twice, they have been rated as the world's #1 incubator, which is a very impressive feat, and one which we don't really tell people about too often. Or this, rocket makers. They help to accelerate technology, working with companies large and small, and they have won the Queen's Award for Enterprise for an app that helps Olympic athletes track their performance on a daily basis. Not something we shout about, but something we should shout about, perhaps. And this is a young company of the many young, exciting companies, Living Map. In Bath, they are tackling in the market space for the tracking of things as a huge challenge. And you can imagine this, of tracking the millions of items in the world. And as part of solving that, they're solving the indoor navigation problem and winning against Google and Apple. This app is used at Heathrow. It's used at the New York Metropolitan Museum. And there are many stories like this. We are genuinely taking on the world, reinventing ourselves in Bath. This is a slide about the group called Camera at the University of Bath. Camera has taken what was essentially the technology from Lord of the Rings and moved it forward and as a world-leading 3D motion capture system so that they can not only create incredible new movies for the within the entertainment industry, but also for assistive devices, for improving athletic performance, and really taking on the world. And this is absolutely a vital piece of the world, the creative world now. You may not have seen this one. This is the $1 billion Louvre in Abu Dhabi, a masterpiece of engineering. And yet, that engineering was done right here in Bath, literally meters from the Stotherton Pit site. And that most forward-facing and future-facing of cities, Singapore, is built around Gardens by the Bay. It's built, which is built around the super trees. So that sort of says, this is a bigger, more exciting place, Bath. It really is amazing what we do here. The problem is we don't really tell people. That's something that we have to learn to do as an organization, as a community and an organization. Share what the future is of Bath. Share what we can do with the world. And my wish, in fact, my ask of you, is to share your stories. Put your voices into this. Tell the world what you do so that the echoes that we hear for the next 2,000 years, say, are at least as exciting as the last 2,000. Thank you.